watching Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions.
The year 2019 is going to be an exciting time in the city of New Orleans, and we want you to be a part of it. If you have a book, an event, or a business that you would like to promote right here on Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions, contact us at www.mtwimagesolutions.com or info@mtwimagesolutions.com. See you there. The New Orleans Saints are back, y'all, and while the city is in a football state of mind, Meet the World Image Solutions is ready to take you on the road. Join us December 20th through the 23rd, where we hit not one, but two cities. First, we're going to roll into Memphis, where we're going to hit Beale Street, Stax Records, and the Lorraine Hotel. And then we're going into Nashville, where we're going to have a few more surprises for you right before we watch our New Orleans Saints run right over the Tennessee Titans. We're talking luxury bus. We're talking 4-star hotel, gift bags. You do not want to miss this. So if you need more information, contact us at 504-505-5894. That's 504-505-5894. See you there.
This program does not reflect the views and opinions of the New Orleans Talk Network. Viewer discretion is advised. This program does not reflect the views and opinions of
Hello, it's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M Lawson, and we are back with a new episode of Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions. And as I just said, I am your girl, Dr. Rhonda M Lawson, and I am sitting here in the studio with attorney and just all-around wonderful person.
Thank you.
And my church member.
Yes, Franklin Avenue.
Yes, shouts out to Franklin Avenue Baptist Church. And she's also a candidate for the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, right?
Correct. District 2.
District 2.
Which is Jefferson, Orleans, St. Charles, St. John, St. James, and Assumption parishes.
That's a lot of parishes.
That's a lot of parishes and a lot of room to cover.
It is a lot of room to cover. We're going to jump into all of that. But this is none other than Miss Shawon Bernard.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
So why don't we start with telling us a bit about yourself?
Well, I am Shawon Bernard. I am married 30 years to Mr. Carl Bernard. I have 2 children. One is in college. She's a junior over at LSU. And I have another daughter who's recently graduated, and she's she's an attorney. She passed the bar exam, and she studies.
Wonderful.
She studies environmental law, and she has relocated to Portland, Oregon.
Wow, that's a long way from here.
It is. So had an opportunity to visit this summer. It's beautiful.
It is very beautiful up there.
So I'm also an educator, former educator, 25 years experienced educator. I'm a certified teacher, certified math teacher, high school. I'm also a certified administrative principal, and I've been a principal of an elementary school, middle school, and high school. And I did that for 25 years. I've worked in Orleans Parish before the hurricane. Once Hurricane Katrina happened, I lost my job with other 7,000 school board employees.
Yes, I remember when that happened, and that was heartbreaking.
It was. So I came back after the hurricane thinking we were going to create this great school system, and it has been so disappointing that I went back to law school. And I commuted. I used to be the assistant principal over at John McDonough High School, so we'll talk about that and my experience at that school. But I went to law school. I commuted for 4 years from John McDonough to Southern University Law Center. I graduated in 2013. I took the bar, passed the bar, and now I'm a practicing attorney. I practice family law and education law.
Wow. So running for the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, this isn't just something that you just threw yourself in. You're very actually dedicated to education, and you're very experienced with education.
I would say I'm highly qualified, well prepared, and the best candidate in the race. I have 25 years of actual classroom experience where I worked as a teacher. I worked as a teacher leader. I've worked as an administrator, as a data manager, as the testing coordinator. I've done every job inside of the school that you could do to prepare yourself as a school leader. And then I went back because of issues I saw with policy, and I
Yes.
went back to study policy. So I went back to law school, for the mere purpose of studying it and understanding what was going on with education law. So I don't only like to learn, but I like to get degrees when I learn. So
Come on.
so I got my JD degree, and now I'm an attorney. But my whole livelihood and my whole adult life has been dedicated to education and to helping children and families trying to figure out how they can get and achieve the same things that I got through public education. Because what I didn't say is my mom. I lived in the Lafitte housing project, so
I did too.
you did too. I lived
Yes.
675 North Pearl Street.
Come
So,
on.
so
That was 611 North Miro.
okay. So I lived there my entire life. I went to Head Start, preschool. If you remember, there was a school down the street on Orleans Avenue that you used to go a half day before you were able to go to pre-K at Phyllis Weekly. So I went to Phyllis Weekly.
I went to Phyllis Weekly.
See, we should have had this conversation a long time ago. So I went to Phyllis Weekly. I went to Bell.
Yes,
and
me too.
And then I went to Clark.
Okay.
So I graduated from Clark. And when I started my teaching career, I started my first job at Clark. And I was taking a teacher's place who was on sabbatical. Because back then you used to have some rights and some I don't want to say incentives, but you had some the word escapes me, but teachers were able to take sabbaticals, and you can go
Yes.
back and you can take some time off because teaching is a hard profession.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you need to take some time away. Or maybe you were working on your degree, because I've taken a sabbatical when I went and finished some of the trainings that I had to do in the education that I needed to get. So I was taking my classroom teacher's job. So she was gone for a semester. She came back in January, and I was teaching Algebra 1. I ended up teaching the second semester history. And I was not a history teacher. And I didn't want to put myself in front of children not being qualified to teach them a subject that they needed to learn and to hold myself
That takes a lot to be able to say that, okay, I'm just not qualified yet, so I'm going to go back and get the training that I need and then come back.
Right. So that happened to me with history. And I was like, this is not a course I can teach. And I never wanted to have myself placed in that situation again. So the second time that I had to teach something that I didn't deem to be qualified to teach, it was under the realm of mathematics, because I was a math teacher, a certified math teacher, and the principal decided I can teach computer science. Well, math and computer science, just because
Yes.
it's the same curriculum, doesn't mean that you're qualified to teach computer science. So I went back to Southern in New Orleans, and I got a master's degree in computer informational science, because I wanted to make sure that I presented myself
Yes.
as a qualified instructor to students who I was teaching.
Do you think that may be some of the challenges that schools are facing, that teachers are being placed into subjects that they have to teach and they don't always feel very qualified to teach those subjects?
Well, I do, and it starts with, let's talk about the TFA teachers that have come in. 'Cause
TFA.
TFA, Teach for America.
Okay.
So Teach for America is a program that my opponent was the executive director of, and had some issues that, so much so that she's participated in conversations, if not necessarily doing the vote, to say whether or not TFA would get a contract from the state. So she's an elected official who's also running and managing the TFA contracts that comes down and placing teachers in the city of New Orleans. And these people don't necessarily have the teaching certification or credentials that they need. So if you have a degree, any 4-year degree, then you can be a teacher. This is the only profession that exists that you can decide that you're going to be a teacher.
And that's great for somebody who needs a job. They can just slide right into teaching. But is that a disservice to the students who have to learn from these teachers?
It is, which is why we have the issues that we have now in education, because this has been going on for at least the last 8 years since the hurricane. So it's 14 years now. So TFA was here prior to the hurricane. They really came on after Hurricane Katrina. And we have replaced certified teachers. So when I talk about certified teachers, and even Ms. Jones, the incumbent, doesn't have a certification that's issued from the state of Louisiana. I've suggested before that if you Google her or you go to Teach Louisiana and put in her name, nothing will come up. Even when I was teaching my first years of teaching, you had a temporary authority to teach. That doesn't exist apparently anymore. That teachers need that, or at least it doesn't exist for some people who come in a certain way. So you will see the first time a person gets authority from the state of Louisiana to teach, and they come in with a temporary authority until they're certified, fully certified. So the fully certified program has ended. It has changed from since the hurricane. So there are a new set of laws, which is why I went to law school to figure out what has changed and what are they doing to make the criteria and the responsibilities different that they operate under. They being the regime that has come in to do this reform that they say we needed.
Absolutely.
And it's just a disservice because you're putting these young people
Yes.
who have the best intentions, but you don't give them what they need to be in front of children so that children get what they need and we can move forward with education.
Well, we're sitting here talking with Ms. Shawon Bernard, who is an attorney,
I am.
former teacher, former educator. And if you would like to ask her some questions yourself, you can call us at area code 563-999-1808. That's area code 563-999-1808. So now I want to delve a little bit more about where we're not doing our students a service. You know, when we just kind of put people into a job. I remember when I graduated from John F. Kennedy, back when it was on Wisner Boulevard. Different John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
But I remember my senior year, the teachers went on strike. And there were people who, they didn't mind crossing the picket line because they wanted a job. So we had people who were filling these substitute positions because they needed a job. And many times the only qualification was you have to have a 4-year degree.
And that's just, well, that's the qualifications now that you need to get a teaching job. So at least when the teachers went on strike, they came back to get their jobs, and they picked up and they gave you the curriculum and the instruction, and they picked up on that. You must have graduated in what, 89, 90?
91.
91, because I started my teaching career in after the strike. So a teacher was out on sabbatical, and I came in after the strike. So I was one of those temporary authority to teach teachers. But what I also had the advantage of having was a whole school full of certified teachers, a school full of resources that were there to help me into how to navigate and to do what I needed to do, from writing a lesson plan to presenting lessons to just supporting the efforts of me getting into the teaching profession. That doesn't happen now because there's so many new teachers and the turnover is so great. We also had contracts and we had some job security when we were prior to the hurricane. Now you have the teachers who come in and there's no contract, they're at will, and they're replaceable so fast that you may have a teacher today and not tomorrow.
And that's not a service to the students at all, because many times a student will learn from somebody whom they identify with. And if they can't get to know that teacher who's teaching them, they're not going to learn from them.
Well, the students have to believe that you are there to for their benefit, and that you really know what you're doing, and that you truly care about their education.
Yes.
So you can't fool them. They have this great insight that they can read people. So if they decide that you are a supporter of theirs in terms of helping them get to what they need to get to, they will respect you enough to give you that opportunity to present to them, and then you can present that curriculum. But if they don't think that you are a believable, a trustworthy person, they're not going to give you that insight. So sometimes it takes, how do we relate to them? And what we have is we have a lot of people coming in from out of state who don't necessarily know how we do things and why we do things. We have them following curriculums that are written for them, and you have to do this on day one, and this at this time, and this on day two. Well, I would say Johnny, but I'm going to say Tyrone may need something different. So you have to figure out how to relate to him because of where he comes from, because of the support that he has at home or the lack thereof. And it's not always scripted. And if you don't have that from your experiences, your personal experience, how can you give it to someone who needs it? Because you can't read it like that. Nobody can teach you those things. You have to be able to relate to people. And in order to relate, I do believe you need a connection with this community. That's part of what's missing also.
And that's a big one, I believe. I mean, you do have to have a connection with this community. You have to understand the way kids grow up in these different communities before you're able to relate to them and actually teach them and get through to them.
Right. Oh, before they will relate to you, So they can say, and I worked at a school where it was becoming a charter school, and they had these rules. So charter schools are public schools, they say, but they're governed by a group of people who you decide that you're going to run a charter school. So when I decided to go to law school, I had a colleague of mine, a couple of them, and they started their own charter school. So what you do is you say, I want a charter school, and I need a board. So you go and select the people who you want to have on your board so that they can help you prepare for your charter. Well, I've gone to a few charter board meetings, and they just rubber stamp what the people say because that's your friend or that's your colleague.
I was just about to say that when you're trying to get something started, you're going to go to the people you know.
Correct.
And they may not always be the best qualified to run that board.
Correct. Well, there was a list of people who you would choose from who would be good because you need a financial person, you need a curriculum person, and you need certain people. But there were a list of groups that you would choose from. Well, it's people who are all connected to helping get charters. What I decided to do was I didn't like what I saw. I thought it was illegal. I thought it wasn't right. I thought it wasn't just. So I said, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do law. And I'm going to figure out how to attack this legally because I like to say that, slavery was legal at one time. Mm-hmm. Separate but equal was legal at one time. Just because we have laws on the books does not mean it's just laws. We have to work to change some of these laws that exist. And we can only do that when we have an understanding of how it works. And to get that understanding, you have to go and study. So I went to study to show myself approved that, and I believe, I go to church almost every Sunday. I've been missing because I've been campaigning.
Because you've been campaigning.
I know, but I love to go to church and I love to get the word. And recently we were doing, before I decided to get into this race, we were doing a study with First Lady Luter. And we were talking about Esther and pathways. And it was, the gist of the lesson was, it says, for such a time as this, like God has given you everything that you need to equip yourself so that you could be faithful to step out and to take some bold move and some bold action. And that's what I decided to do. So I didn't confer with anybody as opposed to, or is it your turn or what you want to run? That was a conversation I had with God. And it was like, okay, I got everything. I got the training. I know I'm well equipped in terms of education and just my work that I do with children. And we have to replace the incumbent. She is not doing the children any service. She, I would say rumors are, but there have been reports made that she doesn't even live in the city. She doesn't even live in the state. So when we have somebody, we talked earlier about having a connection, with people, when you all see her, ask her the question where she lives. And why is it that so many...
Where she live?
Because I'm going to turn, I don't like to do rumors. But according
to put it out there.
Well, according to her filings, she has to do these filings for campaign and political seatings. She's had 3 or 4 different addresses in terms of what her residency is.
Wow.
So, but she would say she lives in New Orleans, but she doesn't have, she doesn't own a home. And the addresses keep changing. So she would have to answer that question. So I would just ask the viewers and supporters that's a question,
I think that's a question we need to ask.
Yeah, and only she can answer that. So the other issue is outside money that's coming into this election. This is a non-paying seat. There's no salary that goes with this seat. We get paid a per diem to travel to Baton Rouge to have meetings a couple times a month. Mm-hmm. Why is it necessary that the incumbent has a commercial that's running during the Saints game? What are people buying? Why is it such that they're pouring all of this money from the Waltons and from Leslie Jacobs, the founder of the charter movement? Why are they pouring all of this money into this campaign and into this seat?
We're going to have to put a pin in that, but we're coming right back to that. We need to take a quick break. But if you want to ask some questions, because this conversation is getting heated, so I want you to call 563-999-1808. Don't forget to like, share this video, because somebody needs to hear this. I know that there are a number of people who are watching this show right now who have children who go to school in one of these parishes that the District 2 covers.
6 parishes.
Yes.
Do it again?
Yes.
Jefferson, Orleans, St. Charles, St. James, St. John, and Assumption parishes.
So you may have a child who goes to school in one of these parishes. You really need to hear this. And you may know somebody who needs to hear this. So I will need you to I need you to share this video, comment, and subscribe, because we're about to really dive into this. So you stay right there. Do not move. We will be right back.
The number one inspiration in my life.
For anybody that's trying to follow anyone's path, that's a path you go behind and stand tall behind, because our resume speaks for itself.
Her determination, her perseverance, her persistence is by far what this community needs.
She made a difference with me because it was really nice seeing her and how she cared about the kids.
I'm Shawon Bernard, number 37, and on October 12th, I would appreciate your vote.
New Orleans Saints are back, y'all, and while the city is in a football state of mind, Meet the World Image Solutions is ready to take you on the road. Join us December 20th through the 23rd, where we hit not one, but two cities. First, we're going to roll into Memphis, where we're going to hit Beale Street, Stax Records, and the Lorraine Hotel, and then we're going into Nashville, where we're going to have a few more surprises for you right before we watch our New Orleans Saints run right over the Tennessee Titans. We're talking luxury bus. We're talking 4-star hotel, gift bags. You do not want to miss this. So if you need more information, contact us at 504-505-5894. That's 504-505-5894. See you there. And we're back. Girl, Dr. Rhonda M Lawson. I am sitting here talking with Shawon Bernard, who is a candidate for the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, District 2. So before we jump back into what we were talking about, can you explain to the people what exactly is the Betsy Board and what does the Betsy Board do?
So the Betsy Board is the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. They're responsible for K through 12 policies. So what happens is the legislators make law, and depending on how those laws affect the education policies, Betsy would come over and they approve laws. So Betsy is responsible for hiring a superintendent. So the current superintendent, and I'm just going to deviate just slightly, is John White. So John White's been a superintendent. He was a superintendent at the Recovery School District. So I worked for the Recovery School District, and John White was my superintendent. So he went from being the Recovery School District superintendent to the state superintendent. When we talked about, when I mentioned certification in that process, John White also does not possess total certification to become superintendent. He got a waiver. So his background did not qualify him to be superintendent.
So how is it that we have people who are making policy for our children in the way they learn, and they don't even have the proper certifications to be in these positions?
The reason I went to law school was because there was a whole new set of laws that have been created that would provide opportunity for business people to come in and for non-traditional educators to come in and to lead education. Mm-hmm. So that's the leadership that we have now. When Governor Edwards was elected 4 years ago, one of the things that he said he wanted to do was to replace the current superintendent, who was John White. Well, Kira Jones at that point had been on the board for 4 years. Mm-hmm. But in order to hire a superintendent, because I went back and I read the law, I also had this discussion with the governor about the interpretation of the law. So my interpretation says you need 8 votes in order to get a superintendent. Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't have 8 votes, then you shouldn't be the superintendent. So we have someone who's filling in month to month.
Wow.
For the job, because he cannot get 8 votes to be deemed or hired as a state superintendent. So because of his credentials, or because there's an 11 board, there are 11 different members on the Betsy board, 8 are elected and 3 are appointed by the governor. And in order to hire the superintendent, you need 8 of those votes. So he can't get 8 votes. So the president of the board decided that he was going to pass a policy or create some new procedure that says John White can stay until we're able to get 8 votes. So that's how he still stays. But again, another question for the incumbent is, did she support the governor? Because she stands now and she says, I support the governor and on the pay raise. But the governor's been trying to replace John White for the last 4 years. And, how has she voted on that? Did she stand with him then? Again, a question that needs to be answered.
Now, traditionally, no matter what position that you're running for, it's very tough to run against an incumbent. People like to go with whom they're most familiar with. They like to go with the name that they recognize. Why is this the time for you?
It is so challenging to work against an incumbent to begin with. And number 2, this particular incumbent has a lot of money that's coming from outside resources. So because we're all in her district, I've gotten, I think, maybe 4 pieces of mail that comes from her, and other people are paying for these mail outs to be sent. So you're working with, they call it dark money because it's not her money and it's not her campaign's money, but it's other organizations that are supporting her. So we have that money coming in. And just the fact that she's able to have so much money. So as I'm going out in the community and I'm talking with voters, and early voting has happened, and the conversation is, did you vote, and who did you vote for? Can I still get your vote? And they say, oh, I voted for, I don't know her name, but it's whoever sent, the mail out. So, my comment to them is, I'm going to need you to get 2 votes for me. So one is to undo the foolishness. I tell them that you did because you didn't know. You didn't know.
Right.
But here's an opportunity for your viewers to get to do some research to say, hey, let me see what this lady represents and whether or not I can be someone who would really stand up for children, who would really stand up for community, who's not going to sell out a vote, who's not going to just vote a certain way because a certain group of people support me. So I don't have that type of support. I want to say I'm independent, and I'm so much independent that I decided to do this race. And the hope is to get the incumbent out. So, for such a time as this, if not me, then who?
And like I said, it is difficult, even with all of the challenges that our schools have had. We had the issue with Sophie B. Wright last year with the principal who said you will not graduate if you do this thing that they did.
Right.
And then you have the kids at John F. Kennedy, who half the graduating class was not able to actually graduate, and many of them wound up losing scholarships because of this whole graduation fiasco, for lack of a better term. And we're seeing a lot of these different issues. So, is there something that the Bessie board can do to help to maybe not so much alleviate it, but to correct it?
Well, let's start. We'll do Kennedy because Kennedy was the most recent one. So we've been participating in these forums. So the incumbent's belief is that the opponents in this race are taking issues that are local issues and Betsy has no authority over. And I would argue that that's not necessarily true. When it comes to Kennedy, the state, the Department of Education, rejected those diploma requests because they didn't comply with law. They didn't comply with what the procedure was. So if that doesn't give the authority to the Department of Education, who the board hired a superintendent to run, then whose authority is that? So I would say that that diploma fiasco is directly an issue that the state should have seen. So when you have a representative who does not and has not stood with the community to say, hey, what happened to the children at Kennedy is not right, and we need to figure out how to make it right.
Right.
And making it right may be more than just deciding that they need to take a course. So they decided, the state, the Department of Education, somebody went through and said, this particular course is not a qualified course, or they missed too many days, or whatever the issues were, or grades were changed and they should not have been changed, and now the students need to do this. Well, even after the students did what you suggested they do, if you didn't, Kennedy and New Beginnings, if you didn't make sure that that was then a qualified course, in state, you're working with them now because you've already rejected what they submitted the first time, and they still don't get to graduate.
Right.
Right. Whose fault is that if it's not the charter fault and if it's not the state fault for failing to oversee the charters? So it's people like to say now that, oh, we've given all the authority back to the local school board and the school board's responsible. You didn't give the school board any authority to do anything.
Right.
You gave under Act 91 that passed, and then you created the procedures and the policy under Bulletin 17 that talks about what the school board can do. Well, in order for the local school board to do anything, there has to be a mutual agreement. And the school board, by law, is not responsible for transcript. The Department of Education issues diplomas.
Now, you've touched on that. So let's kind of dive into that because, at one time, like right after Katrina, basically just about every school in the city was a charter school. There were very few schools that were still under the Orleans Parish School Board or Jefferson Parish School Board or what have you. So now they're trying to give the responsibility back to the school boards. But how does that work? What's the difference between a charter school and a regular public school? And how is what we're doing now different than what was happening before?
Okay, so let me talk briefly about how the Recovery School District got all of those schools. Prior to the hurricane, a failing school had a score of a 60. While we were out, because I was displaced, and while all of us were out trying to figure out what we were going to do with our lives and where our children were going to go to school and where we were going to work, the state decided that they were going to take that 60 and make a failing school now an 87.4. So these schools were not failing prior to the hurricane.
Right.
So now the hurricane happens and they changed the rules. They changed the law. And now an 87.4 is failing. So you take over all of these schools. And when you took over all of those schools, you took the insurance money that went with those schools. You took the buildings that went with those schools. You took all the responsibility away from the Orleans Parish School Board and you took it under the Recovery School District. So for 12 years, 13 years, because we're in year 14 now, and it came back, I think, in July. So it may have been 14 years. Now you want to give them back. So you say, how do you give them back? So they don't come back with all of the authority. They come back as charter boards. And each charter has its own 1, 2, 3 schools that it runs and it manages with those boards that I talked about earlier. So what the Orleans Parish School Board is able to do now is to decide whether or not that charter can continue to operate. That charter has the autonomy to do its own curriculum, do its own hiring, do its own firing, do its own calendar. So I talk about a calendar. We used to have a district calendar where we go to school on the same day. The only difference was if you were in elementary school or middle school or junior, high school, the dates may change. Now we have children today who are on fall break. School just started and they're on fall break. So you have all these different calendars. And every school, every charter operates differently.
Right.
The school board can't come and even run a charter. The other thing is transportation. So you have this enormous transportation budget. And it's not local people who are getting those contracts. They're hiring people from out of state, people from different parishes. And we don't pour any of our resources back into our community to grow our community. Why is that? And how do we just keep allowing it to happen? So with transportation, recently there were issues with children and they did pass do an agreement that children were not going to get picked up before 6 o'clock. Doesn't mean they don't have to be at the bus stop for 6:01. It's still early that they're getting up.
Right, that's very early.
Right, and they're passing schools in their neighborhood to go to a school across the river somewhere. But the school buses falls under the policy, the rule, the law. It's under the state of Louisiana. That's a duty for the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. Now they took that duty and they decided to give it to every local charter organization. But we have buses without any, we have to get our car stickers. The buses have to get their authorizations to be on the road. They're failing those. I know that the mayor recently sent a letter to both the Orleans Parish School Board and to the Betsy Board, to the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, that says your buses are not qualified to be on the on
and
streets.
that was a big point of contention in the city too, because many people felt like they were the city was putting more attention onto the party buses than they were on the school buses.
Because usually the school buses were overseen by the Orleans Parish School Board. So they had their whole line or the whole fleet of school buses, and they were responsible for that, and they oversaw that. Now, because each LEA is different, or each charter organization is different and responsible for their own bus services, no one's overseeing it. So it's just going by the wayside. Again,
So everybody's doing what they feel is right.
correct, because who truly has oversight?
Right.
Who's responsible to make sure that there's some check and balances? So if the state doesn't do that, and if your representative doesn't know that that falls under an authority that they should be watching, because the charters that they gave those charters to before Orleans Parish got involved, before you gave them back, and now you want to give all of that back to Orleans Parish School Board, but yet you don't give them the true authority to do anything about it.
Right. Well, unfortunately, we have to stick a pin in that because it's time to take another break. But this is your girl, Dr. Rhonda M Lawson. I am talking with Ms. Shawon Bernard, who is running for the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, District 2. So stay right there. We're only halfway through this conversation. So much more to talk about. So while we're gone, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We will be right back.
To New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, I had a vision that I would help to create a great school system for all children of this city. 14 years later, the reality is we still have not provided quality education to every child. There are laws that have been enacted that have taken power and authority away from our elected school board. We have a system where children have long bus rides and early pickup times, where the high cost of transportation does not equate to safer bus rides, where nearly 40% of the schools in the city of New Orleans have a school grade of D or F, where self-appointed charter school board members exercise autonomy with little oversight and no accountability to the residents of this city. I am Shawon Bernard, a certified teacher, a certified K-12 principal with nearly 25 years of actual classroom and school experience. I'm also a licensed attorney, and I practice family and education law. My vision is simple: accountability, accessibility, and advocacy. Accountability such that we hold elected officials accountable for the educational system under its governance. Accessibility such that we provide quality schools for every child throughout this city. And I will continue to advocate for policies, laws, and behaviors that do not marginalize children, teachers, and school employees. Today I ask you to stand with me and vote Shawon Bernard, number 37, Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, District 2. You may also visit my website at bernardforbetsy.com to join our team.
Yeah, new show. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M Lawson, and I'm coming back at you with the new year of Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions. And this year, we're moving to Monday night with brand new exciting guests and engaging literary conversation. And we want our listening audience to be there with us because this is going to be a year you will not forget. Catch us every Monday night, 7 p.m., right here on the New Orleans Talk Network. And you can also reach us on the Meet the World Image Solutions Facebook page, the Meet the World Image Solutions YouTube page, and we're on Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play. So catch us every Monday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. See you there. The New Orleans Saints are back, y'all, and while the city is in a football state of mind,
And Shawon Bernard.
see, we came back on before warning.
Yes. But we're ready.
Yeah, we're good. So we were just talking about just many of the challenges that our education system in New Orleans has had. And for years, I mean, even prior to the hurricane, New Orleans and probably Louisiana, but mostly New Orleans was always kind of talked about as one of the worst school districts. Yeah.
Yeah, we were known as that. When I got my first principal administrative assignment, I actually was at Hoffman Elementary, and Hoffman was one of the schools that um, was slated to be closed or taken over by the state. So we had 1 year to raise test scores to reconfigure the school, but we didn't meet the standard that the state laid out. So they came and they took that school over. So that was one of the first schools that were taken over. So it's not the first time that the state has stepped in and decided to come and do some things in New Orleans. It's just that when the hurricane happened, they saw a great opportunity to step in and not take over just a few schools that were failing, but a whole slew of schools that they decided to classify as failing schools.
So, what do you plan to do if you are elected to the Bessie board?
So one of the things I would like to do, my plan, I call it a 100-day plan. So the first 100 days, I want to visit each parish because each parish, as I've been traveling and listening, they have their own unique issues.
Everybody has a different way that they do business.
Correct. And they have different things that they're concerned about. So the district representative, because again, 6 parishes, you have to be in each of those parishes. And you have to figure out what's concerning to those parishes. So I'm going to talk about Orleans and I'll move my way down. But my plan is to meet with the local school board, along with the elected officials, especially those representatives who represent us in Baton Rouge, because we have to, again, affect policy. So we have to propose law that will affect 6 parishes. And I think when we work collaboratively together, we can pick out those things that we can all support, that we all agree upon, see if we can implement some of those first, and then also at the same time to get the other parishes to support whatever the individual parishes may need.
It sounds like you're going to be working pretty closely with the council members and the state representatives in each of those areas.
I plan to. I work with an organization now. I do 2 things. I have an organization called the Lower Ninth Ward Voters Coalition, where I'm the vice president. I started that organization, or that organization was started after I ran the first time. I ran for the local school board seat for District E out in New Orleans East. And I didn't get into the runoffs by 27 votes. So I looked at that data and realized that people were not voting. And this is the same concern that continues to exist today.
Yes.
Because in order to bring change, you have to do something different. If you want things to change, I implore the public, the voters, to vote out those people who are in those seats now and give somebody else an opportunity to.
And I still say that that's so much easier said than done. I mean, if I know you remember, we're about the same age, and if you remember, we had a politician who was caught with money in his freezer and wound up getting reelected the next election.
Because they go by name recognition.
Yes.
So when I ran the first time, I didn't realize that you want to run and do the job because you're like, I can do this job. I'm qualified to do this job. I have the passion to do this job. Some of the stuff that happens you do for free already. It's like I don't need a title to do it. So you're out here and you're thinking this is a great opportunity to tie in your passion, what you would like to do to help the community. And then I realized, wait, I need money to get on your card, in order for you to send the ballot out to your house. And that's not the kind of funding that I have. So you don't get your name in front of the people. So they just vote according to what's being mailed to them, which is why my opponent has done so many mail outs. So it's how do we educate the public for them to understand that if they just show up at the polls and vote for someone that they've done some research on, and if they're satisfied with the way education is, if they're satisfied with children not getting high school diplomas, if they're satisfied with the busing issue, if they're satisfied with not having certified teachers in their classroom, if they're satisfied with everything that's happened, then vote for the incumbent and don't complain. But if you're not satisfied, then you need to vote differently. What I also have realized is that people are satisfied with the system because they don't participate in the system. It's not their children.
Right.
The people who are in the system are poor Black children, poor white children. These are just economics, have you in public school when it's not a good public school system.
And then another thing is you'll have a person such as myself. I'm like, my daughter's not in high school anymore. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to participate. So now all of a sudden, because my daughter has gotten her education and she's gone on to college, I don't have to worry about anybody else.
But we have to work. at some point we have to worry about something other than ourselves.
Yes.
We have to invest in people in the future, in children, because they didn't ask for the situations that they were born into. And parents, because I do family law and I do a lot of custody, and I'm also a qualified mediator. So I try and help parents to mediate solutions that are best for children. And sometimes people don't know what they're lacking until someone points it out, and not in a terrible way. There's a video going around today of a little boy who's sleeping on the ground,
Yes.
and
Because he was up so early waiting for the bus.
correct. So that was the caption, So I don't know how long that person stood out there and whether or not they reached out to the child and, what's the end result of that story. But I was reading some of the comments and people were quick to blame the parents, and quick to blame the system. But at the end of the day, we have to figure out, how do we change it? How do we make it different so that that does not continue to happen? Mm-hmm. And just going on Facebook and posting is not going to do it. We have to do more than that.
Well, when we post things on Facebook, what we do is we generate what we call fake rage. It sounds good to say something, oh, this is horrible. I can't believe this. When we put all of this on Facebook, don't do this and don't do that. Make sure you vote against this. But then when it comes down to putting your money where your mouth is, it's a totally different story.
Correct. And it is time to pay, pay the piper. The biggest payment this cycle, is Saturday, when you have an option, when we have an opportunity to put different people in office, so that we can bring about some change that we want to see. So if you don't want children out in the morning on a bus, let's change how that works. And the only way to change how it works is if we change law. Because there's a law that says these people who decide what time children can go to school exist. Like I said before, slavery was legal at one time. Separate but equal was legal at one time. People had to stand up and rise up against that. It says, good people have to do something. So there are many, many good people out there, and we need you to act. We need you to change the leadership if you want to change the direction of what's happening with education. And it's purposefully. It didn't just happen. Don't think, it just happens. Everything is planned. One of my other thinking is, in order to operate the city, we do tourism. We have people who are working 2 and 3 jobs because that industry does not pay well. Well, it doesn't take an educated population to work those jobs. Mm-hmm. So where's the investment in our education system that can demand higher pay or create some additional jobs or some different jobs that will allow parents to one job, that will allow parents to be able to say, oh, I can flex my schedule and, I can be there for my child and I can bring him to school or I can pay for morning care or I have somebody I can depend on. How do we support community? What are we actively doing to do that? Instead of standing in judgment of why, let's be solution-based. How can we help alleviate the solution? And I say, I'm at least willing to say, let me step up, take the seat, see what I can do, and to add to the conversation. I know I understand policy. Yes. I can find that out for you. I can put myself where these children used to be. My mom worked 2 jobs. My mom had 5 children. Mm-hmm. I was the first one to graduate college. My brother went to college. He came back home. My sister went to college. She came back home. So I decided I'm not going to go away to college. You have to figure out how you're going to adapt. So I went to UNO because I didn't want to leave home, because my thinking was, if I leave home, I'm not going to finish college. So I stayed local, and I graduated. After I graduated, my brother went back to graduate. My sister went back to graduate, and my younger sister graduated. So 5 children, 4 of us have college degrees. The 5th person, she didn't want to go to college. She never went to college. So we're all different. And she's the only one who's about to retire. She's been at her job forever. The rest,
like, well, maybe she had something to that.
She did. So we're all different. And what we have to do is figure out what a child's gift is and how do we support that gift through education, so that they can do what their purpose is in life. And it takes all of us working together. So I was talking about the Lower Ninth Ward Voters Coalition. Yes. So I help to organize high schools where we provide opportunities for the schools. There are 42 public, private, and parochial schools throughout the city of New Orleans, where we offer them an opportunity to have organizations come into their schools to conduct high school voter registration drives.
I actually participated in 2 of those. We went to Abramson and John F. Kennedy.
Yes. So we want the young folks, because I'm ready for them to step up and to take over and take their leadership, but we have to support them and get them to understand that there's power in voting. They may not agree with what we're doing, which means you step up and y'all get it together and do something different, because I've worked with young people my entire life, and I know they have great ideas, and I know they have the capacity to lead, but we have to give them an opportunity and prepare them for that. So we encourage civic engagement. We encourage that the schools participate. Not only do we provide opportunities for them to register, we also hold a forum. And this year we held our forum over at Franklin Avenue Baptist Church.
Yes.
We invited the schools to come.
And how did that go, by the way?
That went well. Again, we get the participation from the schools was not as great as we wanted to be. We want to support the schools because I've been an administrator. I understand the challenges that administrators face when it's time for people to come into your school and to help, and you're trying to keep it together because young folks, they're at a critical age, and you want to make sure that when they represent you, you want them to represent you well. And it was at the beginning of the school year, so the schools were still trying to get themselves together, so we didn't have great participation. I think we had maybe about somewhere between 300 to 400 children, maybe been 500.
Which is still great.
Yeah, so we had five schools that came, so we had somewhere between 300 to 500. I've been campaigning, so I missed some of the numbers. But they did present to some of the candidates. And then last week, some of the schools went and they did early voting. So we provide those opportunities, or we encourage the schools to allow their students to participate in those opportunities so that they can be well-rounded citizens.
And that's wonderful. I mean, when you get them involved in what's going on in the electoral process early, I believe that they stick with it. I mean, I registered to vote when I was 18 years old. And I haven't stopped voting since then because I wanted to be involved. My daughter registered to vote when she was 17, and she was so disappointed she couldn't vote in that election afterward. They're like, no, baby, they say you have to wait till you're 18 years old.
Right. So not only do I do that in Orleans Parish, but I also work with the Jeremiah Group. So the Jeremiah Group is responsible for the voter registration program in Jefferson Parish. So I've been involved with that in terms of, last year we brought a group of students up to Baton Rouge, and they participated and met the legislators, and that's the same thing. So we want to take that program. What I want to do is run it all through the 6 parishes.
Yes.
And maybe we can collectively do something on a state level when we talk about voter registration and civic engagement for students. So that's one of the things I would like to see move forward when I get elected for that seat.
Yeah, but see, you better say when. Come on now.
I say when I get elected for that seat.
So we are actually running out of time. We're just about out at the top of the hour already.
It's time's up.
Yeah.
All right.
What happened? It goes so fast.
Great conversation.
It was a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
But in the last few minutes that we have left, what do you want to leave the voters with? Because I know there's somebody here who's watching. We just had early voting, and there may be some people who missed early voting, and they're going to come out on Saturday. What is it that you want them to know about Shawon Bernard?
Well, I want them to know that I am well qualified to sit on Betsy. I have 25 years of actual classroom experience, and to pay attention to what people say in terms of what their experience is. Go and look up the candidates and decide for yourself. I'm here to toot my platform, but again, in being at all of the forums, I do believe, because I'm a little biased, for myself. I'm a licensed attorney. I've been dealing and working with families and children for many, many years. I've been doing this work. I'm not new to the work. And I didn't decide to run for this position just because. I do believe I'm well qualified and that the incumbent needs to be replaced. I also want them to know that I have a plan of talking with community and not going over and just validating something because the people who gave me money to be in a race, suggested that I do it a certain way. So I want to make sure that I put that out there, that I'm independent enough to listen and engage with the community and do what's best for the community based on what the community needs are. I'm number 37 on the ballot this week. So if you have not had an opportunity to vote, I would love your vote and encourage you to vote for number 37. If you have voted already and now you realize that perhaps you didn't choose the best qualified candidate, what I would ask them to do is to go find me 2 votes. One to undo, I'm just saying, one to undo, and as I say as I walked out, one to undo the foolishness that you did, because you didn't know me, so hopefully now you know. So one to undo that, and then one to put me ahead. So if you did not vote for me and you like what you hear today, and you do a little bit more research, go find me 2 votes. One to undo what you did, and then one to put me ahead. And if you have not voted yet, I would love your vote on Saturday, number 37.
Come on, girl. How can you not vote for this lady? So there you have it. This is Miss Shawon Bernard. She is an educator. She is an attorney.
I'm a certified math teacher. I'm a certified K through 12 principal. I'm a Louisiana licensed attorney. I run my own practice. I practice family law and education law. I went back to law school for the mere purpose of studying education law, and this is what I seek to do. The position is a policy position about education law.
And one thing we didn't really touch on was the fact that you actually put your money where your mouth was, and you actually took the city to court on certain issues.
I did a couple lawsuits I was involved in. So the first lawsuit I did was around John McDonough Steering Committee, where we were advocating for the return of John McDonough back to Orleans Parish School Board. So we got the school board to pass a resolution, because we were going to Baton Rouge, that says we wanted the schools back. So after they passed the resolution, then the bills came. Joe Bowie offered a bill, and then there was a Senate bill that got passed, Senate Bill 91. But anyway, the John McDonough Steering Committee was the driving force behind that conversation to say, hey, we want our schools back. Stop chartering the schools. Mm-hmm. So I believe in local control. I've been advocating for local control, and I've been doing it forever. So we went to a meeting one day, and the board, and this is the Betsy, decided that they were going to do it. It's a committee of the whole, a COW meeting is what it was. So we had a committee of the whole meeting. They put something on the agenda. They voted on something that was not on the agenda. And because I'm an attorney, I'm like, that's a open meetings violation law. So I filed a lawsuit with that. And we also filed a lawsuit behind a bill or a millage that they were trying to pass when they put the advertisements for the bill. They did a thumbs up on all of the school property across the city of New Orleans, and you can't do that. You can't advertise on school buildings in terms of supporting bills. So we sued the entire charter organization, named all of them as plaintiffs, and we entered into an agreement. They took them down, and we dismissed the lawsuit.
We actually have a comment here from Kenyon Perkins. Once an educator, always an educator.
Well, thank you, Ms. Perkins. Once an educator, always an educator. So I like to say, I have to clarify sometimes when I say 25 years of, I'm still a teacher. I still will meet, people. My husband says, you can't do that. I'm like, yes, I can. So I'm always advising, correcting, suggesting things for people. So I've been teaching forever, and I've been educating forever. I love education. So even though I'm in law, I educate parents now about what's best for children, and just try and make sure that children and parents enjoy their lives, because we need children to have both their parents in their lives, so that when they go to school, they're well prepared for the teacher to receive from the teacher.
So Louisiana bred and Louisiana educated.
Louisiana bred, Louisiana born, and I said New Orleans educated. So I'm public school through and through.
Okay, well, you need to get in contact with Kenyon Perkins, because he said to sign him up for volunteering. You are an asset to our children.
Well, thank you. And I need volunteers. So if you want to volunteer, you can go to my webpage, which is Bernard, BERNARD for Bessie.com, and sign up to volunteer. There's a button at the bottom of the page, and I'm looking for volunteers for the rest of the week, especially on Saturday.
Well, you heard it here. We will put that website on the Meet the World Image Solutions Facebook page, so you'll be able to refer back to this show if you want to get more information about Shawon Bernard. Thank you so much for being on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so there you have it. Shawon was the last candidate that we're having on the show, because the election is Saturday. So no more Mondays before Saturday. And I think we saved one of the best for last.
Thank you.
So thank you so much once again for joining us, and thank you for joining us tonight. I hope this has been educational for you. If you have not gotten out to vote, you have until Saturday. Saturday is the very last day that you can vote, unless there's a runoff.
Unless there's a runoff. But let's get it done in one.
Yes, let's get it done in one. So once again, thank you so much. Don't forget, we have a lot of great things happening with Meet the World Image Solutions. If you are an author or an aspiring author, and you want to maybe just take some time to really get that book done, then you'll be very interested in our Words and Wine Writers Retreat, which will be taking place November 9th through the 11th in beautiful Fredericksburg, Texas. So check the Meet the World Image Solutions page to find out more about that. And if you're into football like I am, because I was just at the game yesterday, it was awesome. Go Teddy, Teddy, Teddy. So if you are into football, then don't forget about the Take No Prisoners Saints versus Titans football trip that we are giving in December 20th through the 23rd. It's not too late to put your deposit down. It just won't be a $50 deposit or a $100 deposit, but we do have time for you to put your deposit down. We really want you on this trip because we have so many awesome things planned for you. This is going to be a great weekend. So we have 2 great trips coming up. Another one that we're going to be doing in 2020, but we'll tell you about that one later. And don't forget, we have the Black History Month Literary Weekend coming up February 28th and 29th, 2020. So much going on. Meet the World Image Solutions is here for you. We want to be a service to you. So this is the reason why we had so many of the candidates on the show, because we wanted you to be well prepared when you walk into that ballot box to vote for your next leaders. And then we also want to make sure that you're able to write and then have a good time, but still always make literacy your focus, which is why we're having our trips. So thank you for just your continued support of Meet the World Image Solutions. We hope to see you at some of our upcoming events. And I think that's all we have for tonight.
And don't forget to vote, number 37.
Don't forget to vote, number 37.
Yes.
Shawon Bernard.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. And we're going to have some more authors on the show. I know we haven't had authors in a while, but we haven't forgotten about you. So we'll see you next Monday. Have a great week. Y'all, it's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M Lawson, and I'm coming back at you with the new year of Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions. And this year, we're moving to Monday night with brand new exciting guests and engaging literary conversations.